Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today I wanted to react to an old school glitter and lasers video. It's from 9 years ago, 2016. I wanted to see like how her views have changed, and I wanted to just kind of do like a deep past viewing basically, because I think when I read that blog post a while back, she had a more realistic view. And I just wanted to revisit it, especially because it is daily June. I'm doing daily videos in June. So I wanted to talk about her again for sure. You guys did request it as well, which, duh, we have to. So let's go ahead and watch Miss Anna and what she used to say about the difference between fat shaming and fat curiosity. Let's see.
We're going to talk about today haters.
Okay, it's a little low, but we'll see if YouTube will fix it.
So let's jump right into it. Haters. Now, I've struggled with this a lot because the first thing that happens when you get an angry message on your blog is you want to retaliate. You want to justify yourself. It's not cool when a stranger tells you that you're something you're not. That sucks, right? Like, the first thing you want to do is be like, no, girl, you don't know me. But the truth is, that person...
Yeah, I think that's especially true of the time. I think internet culture has changed a lot, but it used to still be kind of surprising or shocking in a way when people would say certain things almost 10 years ago. You know, it's been almost 10 years. So I understand what she's saying there.
Didn't want to know you and doesn't want to know you. They enjoy those assumptions about you. Those assumptions about you make them feel more comfortable. So regardless of how much you want to set the story straight, you're never going to be able to, because that person, for the most part, especially when they are really hurtful comments, they already have their opinion made.
It's interesting because her view on that has kind of changed, where I feel like she's more hostile now towards haters, and she's even more obsessed than she's ever been with hate comments and stuff. So I wonder if, it signifies a decline in mental health or that kind of thing. Like, I find like she's more reactive now. Like, I'll never forget this one time when she did a live stream while she was on a boat or like a cruise or whatever, and she wanted to see if there was any haters. And she was talking about, she's like, they're going to hate that I'm on here and like that kind of thing. But then nobody really hated her because obviously only her fans are going to show up like really fast. And then when she didn't get any hate, she just left the stream basically. And so I'm like, okay, like her views have definitely changed from this.
It's a gray area. And this is the part that I get scared the most for. There is a difference between someone who makes a mean comment, for example, calls me a fat cow, or tells me I'm a whale, or tells me I'm going to die tomorrow, versus a person who asks, hey, you exercise a lot. Like, why are you still fat? That person doesn't know that they're saying something that hurts you. Either their parents didn't raise them with good manners, or maybe they're been raised in such a community where it's okay to openly...
Well, I would just plainly answer it and say that it's probably because the person is still overeating quite a bit. And there can be many reasons why. In the case of Anna O'Brien, she definitely has the toxic ritualistic stuff going on. She's got binge. She has stated it. It's not even really speculation if it wasn't completely obvious. She has stated that she does binge. She clearly has a problem with that. So that's why she's not going to outrun that or out-exercise that. It's not going to happen.
Talk about weight. Or maybe just for some reason they just don't have attack skills. You don't know their backstories. There is a fundamental difference between a hater and a person with just bad interpersonal skills. No matter how hard you try, no matter how awesome you are.
She still frames herself as above the person, though, which is funny. I think that's just funny to me.
This person's probably always going to hate you. This person, you can win them over. But what I see the most happening online is when this person says something stupid, and it's something stupid. It's something they probably shouldn't have said, or it's worded in the wrong way. The number one reaction they get is the same reaction you give haters. So it's anger, it's aggression, and you know what that does? That validates any negative concept or perception they have of us. Now, I'm guilty of this. I'm going to tell you right now.
She still is. I can be guilty of things too. But I don't really pretend that I'm the nicest person in the world or any, like I just don't hold myself to that standard. I never have. This channel is activistic in nature, so it's not about entertainment. It's fine if it's entertaining. I try sometimes, or like I do try. I don't want it to be boring as hell all the time, but it is activistic in nature. So you're not always going to get customer service reactions from me, is what I'm trying to say. And sometimes if something is really, really dumb, it is hard as an activist to be like so calm all the time, just because you're constantly hearing dumb things, or it's probably not the first person that said that, or it's that kind of thing. I'm not saying it's good. I don't think it's good. I'm just saying that irritation can kind of come through. At this point, I'm usually okay. I just do not tolerate toxic ritualistic reinforcement at all. And I've been really careful on like trying to show you guys what it is, what it looks like, how to fight it, these types of things, especially online. So I'm very aggressive with that stuff. I don't tolerate it. And for example, today on my video about Angelica, I reacted to a comment where somebody was like, "Oh, I'm such a bigger fan of Aubrey Gordon now rather than you and Angelica because she's kind and da 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 da, and you're not." And I basically could recognize the toxic ritualistic reinforcement for what it was. It's the idea that it's nice. It's better to be nice than healthy. It's better to be affirming of people's delusions than to be firm in reality. And I got in quite a bit of an argument with that person, but I pinned it. I want people to be able to recognize when that's occurring and be able to fight against it. And even if it's just in their mind, I don't care if people are like hostile or fighting. Like I will be hostile. I will do it. But I want those conversations to at least be in your mind. If somebody's doing that, I want you to at least be able to do that internally and fight back against it internally, because the way that our society is structured right now, or the way that our culture is structured, it's not helpful for people with BINGE for various reasons, which is why it has raged out of control, unfettered, beyond any level of reasonability at this point, especially in the United States. It's wild. And a lot of that has to do with the idea that affirmation is what's most important. And it's not true within this issue whatsoever. It's the same thing on the overly reductive side. We don't affirm somebody's delusion that they're fat when they're not. You don't affirm somebody's delusion that they're healthy when they're not, on the bigger end of the spectrum. It's toxic ritualistic reinforcement. I will not tolerate it. I do not tolerate it. So if somebody wants to fight, I guess they can do that. But typically I don't really do that much. Like if it's overly personal, I might just delete it, or I might leave it. I don't know. It's just whatever. If it's too personal or if it's off topic, I typically won't do much with it. But yeah, that's basically my stance on it, is all I'm trying to say.
That I am not perfect. And I think that's an important thing to start out with. I am not perfect. And I'm going to tell you a story about these types of people and how I fundamentally screwed up. Jane saw a picture of me from a friend. And my friend had been telling her, "Jane, wait till you meet this girl. You are going to love her." Jane saw my picture and said, "Well, she's fat." I mean, fat girls just aren't really active. They don't do a lot of things. Like, I
I can
just
see
don't
what
see
she's
how we're
saying.
going to be friends. I don't see how she's going to fit in with our group of friends. Now, no matter what my friends said to kind of defend me against Jane, Jane had a preconceived position of what an overweight person was. It wasn't malicious, it just was fat people are not active and they don't do a lot, so I don't understand how we're going to have a relationship. Jane and I ended up meeting, and we became really good friends. We went out, we had drinks, we danced.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an idea that, like, there's no such thing as an extroverted fat person. I do wonder if there is, like, a stereotype that fat people are introverted a lot. Probably. I do think there's a lot of incentives within the toxic ritualistic for introverts, which I do talk about often, because a lot of times extroverts will regulate because they want to go out more and be more social and stuff, and it can be a barrier. Not always, though. There is an extroverted lane, obviously, within the toxic ritualistic, but maybe there is just a stereotype that fat, like every single fat person never gets out or something. I don't know. I guess it's just kind of like ignorance on that person's part, and I can see what she's saying there.
It was amazing friendship. Jane and I got along great. Her friends were right. We were destined to be friends. Now, we have a little bit of a tiff. All friends have them. And I found out about what Jane had said before meeting me. And I got really hurt.
She got triggered. That's what it is. It's a trigger. It comes from overly identifying with being fat. So if it's like, I don't know if I could be your friend because you are fat, then it's seen as like an extreme personal attack. And especially with somebody with these issues, it can run very deep and it goes like right to the core. So I completely understand why it upset her so much. Other people may hear that and they might be like, what? Like, that's not even a big deal. If somebody said that about me now, I don't even think I would bat an eye at this point. But when I was deep in it, that would have deeply cut. That would have been very hurtful. Even though to the other person, there's virtually no malice or even hatred. It's just a skepticism or maybe an ignorance on the person's part, you know? It's not anything that deep, you know? It's just kind of like, how are we practically going to be friends? What is the practical way that we're going to be able to connect? If I'm interested in X, Y, and Z, and most fat people don't engage in those things or can't, then how are we going to be friends? It's much more like practical, because when you're super morbidly obese, it does affect your lifestyle. It does. And it's important to remember that. So there is like a legitimate skepticism or concern, but it's hard for someone like Anna, who is deep within it, to see that kind of objective reality. And people tend to take it as a form of discrimination because they overly identify with their weight, which, you know, it would not hold the same if somebody was like, oh, you know, such and such, they're a black person. I don't think I can be their friend. That's like, whoa, you know, that would be like, that's racist, you know, basically straight up. But there's no real practical implications, basically. There's no like actual reasons that you couldn't be, or like there's nothing really in the way. So it would be rooted in either, you know, historical or current cultural stigmas or whatever you want to call it. That's what it would be rooted in, let's be honest. So I think that that's, you know, a lot of people on that have the toxic ritualistic that are on the left side of the political spectrum, they don't see the difference because they so heavily identify with their fatness. And so they often conflate it as bigotry, or they conflate it as these types of things. It presents differently on the right wing of politics. It's more about like status, and it's more about, it'd be more similar to comparing somebody who has money versus somebody who doesn't. That's probably more how somebody would look at it within the toxic ritualistic. It'd be like, well, they're rich and I'm poor, so how can I be their friend? You know, they'd kind of conflate that. It's just different. It's a little bit different, but it ends up being the same in a sense. All I'm trying to say is, regardless, it's not the same as saying, I don't think I can be such and such as person because of their race, or I don't know if I can be such and such as friends with the person. Sorry, I don't know if I'm mixing up my words, because of their lack of money or the amount of money they have. It's not real. It's not actually comparable, because there isn't that same, I guess, societal pressure behind it. It can be a plain question of, is this practically possible? Rather than other negative stereotypes or things that could come through, whether it was due to class differences or racial differences. It's just different, is all I'm trying to say. But to somebody within the toxic ritualistic, they don't see it as different. They see it as the same thing as that. So it like hurts a lot, even though the person is probably not even thinking about all that stuff at all. There isn't really a historical context with fatness, not really, just because we've never been in a time where there's been this amount of people who are super morbidly obese. So it doesn't really exist. It's very new, you know. A lot of people within the toxic ritualistic, they act like 40 years is 400 years. It's really not. You know, before the 80s, this was incredibly rare. So it's very new in terms of society and stuff.
And I decided I didn't want to be her friend, because I was so upset about how Jane had felt about me before meeting me, that I felt there's no way I can be friends with a person like this, because clearly she's always going to see me as X. But the point I had missed, the thing that I had failed to realize, is that Jane had changed, and I'd been a part of that change. And now I was punishing her because she'd changed. And there's a lot of people like Jane sitting there who just grew up with a misconception, or grew up seeing the world differently. And all we're doing is exposing them to something new and allowing them to see, hey, what I thought for a long time probably wasn't right. So going back to Jane and I didn't talk for a year.
Oh my God.
I was
Girl,
convinced that she...
That is so stupid. I think that my opinion of it is that it's really not that deep. You know, it's really, really not that deep. I think it was just like a quick question that Jane had, and she got over it really fast. So to not talk to her for a year over that is ridiculous, especially looking outside of the toxic ritualistic, like from the perspective I have now, being so removed from it. It is ridiculous to have that opinion. It was likely just due to practical concerns. That was likely all it was, honestly. Especially as she ended up being your friend anyways. If she really hated you for it, she would not have been your friend, period.
Just narcissistic and judgmental. Jane was upset because someone wasn't talking to her who judged her for a perception she had.
Yeah, and you're also kind of feeding into it, and Jane's probably thinking, oh gosh, like, I don't know if I'm going to try that again, because that was a lot. You know, it kind of like, it sets up that kind of stereotype, because it's not just you, Anna. Like, it's people within the toxic ritualistic world. They're not mentally stable. They're not in reality. They're not seeing this as it is. So it's like there's all these hot button things and somebody within that problem, they assume that everybody's going to know like all the intricacies and all the different things of what would trigger you and what would this and what would that. None of that is real. Like, you don't have an actual foundation to feel this way. It doesn't exist, which is really hard, which goes back to that idea of the constant affirmation attitude that we have. You cannot affirm this. Anna was not correct. There is no legal basis of discrimination of fat people. There is no historical basis of discrimination against fat people. There is no heavy conversation. There's no, quote, heavy weight on this topic really at all, other than within the toxic ritualistic world, which is just pathology. It is a DIS order, which, yes, many people have, but not most. The vast majority of people don't. So it's ridiculous to expect everybody to know all the nuances of it, especially within BINGE, because there's hardly anything that talks about it. It's almost perfectly hidden. It is bizarre what is going on with this issue. It's one of the most taboo things ever. I mean, it's crazy to me. It really is. It's almost, in some ways, it's almost more taboo for me to be talking about this than to like go raging into political discussion or something. It's almost more controversial or more hidden. It's bizarre. But, you know, it is what it is. It needs to be known. It just does. People need to know about this stuff.
But no longer held. So Jane wrote me a message. And she explained. And she said, look, I've changed. And you helped me change. You helped me see something different.
She shouldn't have reinforced it. It's bad.
I realized that my perceptions were wrong. But you can't punish me for how I felt before I knew you. I just wasn't exposed to that.
She should have just said, I didn't know how it was going to work, but when it worked, then I got over it. That's basically it. It's not a big deal. It just isn't. You know I'm taking all the fun out of it for people, basically. I'm taking all the magic out, but there isn't any magic. It's just whatever, honestly. I can understand why she was upset, but it's not actually valid. I'm sorry, it just isn't.
And I felt terrible. Every day, and I'm gonna cry here, every day I go out there and I try to change people's minds. I try to show them that I'm not this lazy girl that sits around. I'm not sitting there eating my feelings.
It's performing health, which is a part of it. It's what that is. It's common. A lot of people do it. Back when I was a writer, I wrote a story about it, and that was part of that character. As she would perform health, she'd tell everybody how she was walking all the time, and she'd tell people all these things. And that's something I wrote when I was 22, a year before this video came out, basically. I guess maybe I was 23, actually. So it's like, it's all within that world. It's common within the problem to perform health. It's a part of hiding it.
Doing normal things and enjoying life. And in the back of my head, I'm always like, I've got to change perceptions. And here,
I have to hide. I have to hide what I'm doing. So I have to try to control other people's perceptions of me, because I have to make sure that nobody knows what I'm doing. That's the point.
Done that, and I had punished the person because they had changed. Think how many times do we...
And she probably BING'd over this whole thing because she's crying over it. So she probably used it in a cycle.
Allow a stereotype that is morphing right now, to stand in the way of relationships and opportunities, because we can't let go of the past, because we can't forget how someone saw us, because we can't be the bigger person. Right now, we are inundated with reminders that plus-size bodies are uncomfortable, because we are breaking ground, and we are getting introduced to places that maybe we haven't been previously. But all that's doing...
I think the social role of fatness was more malleable at that time, which, again, it created more problems and also solutions at the same time. Sometimes something like that can be complex. As I told you guys, it led me to start deconstructing my toxic ritualistic. I started about 2014. That was a part of that cultural shift that was happening. I was kind of a part of that in my own way. And then by 2020, I was out by the end of 2020. So it took a process, took a long time, but then I was completely out. So, yeah. Within that, though, there are people who just didn't try at all anymore, which thought they went on TikTok and stuff, and a lot of people died and stuff like that too. Like, there's been a lot of bad things that have come out of it. And now, like fat acceptance, they're trying to take over the medical industry. They're trying to change EFA by the letter D treatment centers and stuff in a way that is not helpful whatsoever. So there's a lot of problems that came from this moment in history. But there are some solutions too, where people started to live their lives. And I think on a personal level, in some people, myself included, body positivity as a movement, it took some pressures off of our toxic ritualistic behaviors, basically. And for me, it created a questioning of them and a way out, ultimately. So it's complicated, but not everybody got out. Same time has passed with me and Anna. She's raging in it more than ever. I got out. She didn't. You know, it's kind of a crapshoot. So I'm hoping that within my activism or within anti-FA in general, we can help to mobilize and get this to change in general and try to help other people find their way out too and create more of a structure. That's my goal anyways, is to try to help create that, because there does need to be something to do this, basically, or there needs to be something a little bit more structured. I hope I'm making sense. Anyways.
Allowing uncomfortable commentary to come to the surface. For people to ask questions that aren't malicious, but maybe aren't worded the best. And it's how we use those opportunities to educate and to open up will be the difference between whether we can move perceptions forward or whether we hold on to them. It's not easy to be shamed. It's not easy to be asked hard questions, especially when they feel private. But if we don't find ways to engage, and in some cases answer them, we're not allowing them the gift of change, because that change is uncomfortable for us. This is a hard message to share, and I'm sure other people might disagree. The more that we can approach every situation and comment as one of innocence, unless it is truly malicious, the greater opportunity we have to change the perceptions of plus-size individuals, of Asian Americans.
See, she's lumping it all in.
Of immigrants, of Muslims, of women, gays, transgender people.
So she lumps it all in her mind. Like I told you guys, But that's just, it's just not the same. It just isn't. I think she had good intentions with this video, but I think that ultimately her problem clouded the overall message and the overall meaning in a way that I don't know she was aware of. Like, I don't know that she was aware that it was affecting her message, because it's not about her politics, it's about her problem, basically. That's what this video is. It's at its root, it is reinforcement. I think it's more self-reinforcement. I don't know if she's necessarily trying to do it to others at this point, but it's definitely self-reinforcement.
Whatever the difference or uncomfortableness out there, the more we can approach the situation with love.
Like, imagine if somebody with the reductive side was including being extremely, I can't even really say it, with being gay or whatever, Asian or whatever the hell she said, with all those things. You see how weird that is? It's just as weird to put fatness there. It is just as weird. And that needs to be understood and recognized. It's not any different. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Or no, I will talk to members tomorrow. And then I'll talk to the rest of you guys Sunday. So have a good one. Bye.